Hi folks, first tutorial here. I'm going to slow things down a little bit. You'll have already watched the video that Jazza put together, and we're going to make the stickman that he created in his video. So first thing, open up your Adobe Flash Professional. It'll be found in your information technology shortcut. So there we go. Alright, now you should have a classic window selected up here, the drop down menu. If you don't, make sure you're selecting classic, and your default page should open and look like this. ActionScript 3 is a nice easy action script to use, so we'll just use that. I think I mentioned in the last tutorial that ActionScript 3 is used for video game production, which is kind of cool. We can look at it a little later. Alright, so your tools panel actually will probably look like this. I'm just going to reset my classic. Yes, I want to reset it. Yeah, this is how it'll look. There's something about this is you can't reach all of the functions on your keyboard. So there's two things you can do. I'm just going to go into properties here for my taskbar. And on taskbar it says auto hide. There's a little section that says that. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to close that. This is where you'll have yours. You can, I think, double click on, or I should say right click on that, and you can go where it says properties. Go there and say auto hide the taskbar, and click apply and click OK, and then it should auto hide your taskbar, and you can actually access some of the functions and features down there. That's one thing. Another thing is, because we are still missing some features and functions, you can see them start to pop up. There we go. I've got them all now. This one here, snap to objects, is one that we're going to be using, of course. That was shown in Jazz's tutorial. Okay, first things first. Starting with the oval tool, or the O key, somewhere in the middle of your piece of paper, just click and draw a circle. Then moving on to the line tool, use your line tool and just click, drag. Again, pulling everything from the center and downwards and outwards, and then out. And you'll notice it's not that easy to make your lines meet up in the center. Next example, actually, first of all, another thing that Jazza was showing us was that you can select the selection tool just by holding the control key. So when you push the control key down, all of a sudden you've got the selection tool available to yourself, which is really handy. Also, one thing I'm doing right now is with the control key pushed, you can zoom in and you can zoom out as well. Okay, without the control key pushed, you move the screen up and down, which is also handy. Okay, so you can actually select on a line, and then you can move it to where you want it to. So there we go. Connect the dots there a little bit. Push the control key down and select my line there. Keeping it down, I can move it over a little bit. Now, Jazza mentioned that the snap to function is handy, so hold that down, and I'm just gonna try that again. Hold it down, select it first, and then you can move it. And we'll do the same thing for here. Control key, select it, and then keeping the control key held, that is, you can move it. I just want the end of that line to match up. Looks like the end of it got cut off, which is interesting too. Okay, select it, and you can move it over. There we go. So lots of little intricacies, as you could say. Idiosyncrasies, that's it. That's the word I'm looking for. Lots of little idiosyncrasies. See, that's even hard to say. Okay, here we go. Yeah, not really perfect. Probably not what we really want to look. There we go. What we're trying to aim for. So we're going to make a better one beside it as well. Here we go. So again, using the oval tool again, which works really well. And this time we'll hold the shift key down, and we can make our circle. Remember, without the shift key, your circles don't really look circular. They look more like ovals. So when you hold it down like that, the shift key down that is, then you can make a really perfect circle. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move. Actually, I'm going to select it this. Just get it back up. Another keyboard shortcut to show you here. Control and Z will get rid of whatever it is that you made a mistake with. So that's another key thing to remember. Now, as Jazza was showing us, I'm going to hit the selection tool here, and I'm going to highlight all of the image. He's showing us that you need to make your objects into symbols, and I'll show you the reason why that is. I'm going to zoom in here first of all. There we go, V for selection. If let's try this way. If I grab onto just to select the circle here, and let's say I want to move it out, I can see that the fill color moved, but the stroke color didn't. So what I would have to do is actually move the stroke and the fill all at the same time. Now I've got my snap to object thing going, so I can actually do it kind of easily, but it's still a bit of a pain, and I want to do it differently. So what I can do is I can just highlight everything, and I can convert the whole thing to a symbol. When I do that, it asks me to name the symbol. So I'll just call it head. There we go. And a couple things here for later. Movie clip is what we're going to be looking to make the type symbol. Registration we're not going to worry about right now. Maybe a little bit later we'll look at it. Folder library is going to be the root. That's a good thing. Now, library being the root, you can see in your library here, now you've got a little icon here and a picture of what the icon is. Now you could take this and you can drag that onto your screen as many times as you want to, and the same size and everything, type of head shows up on your scene, which is really useful when you want to create more than one thing. Now I'm just pressing Control Z to get rid of those. Again, there we go. Now I can take the whole thing and it all moves at once. I don't have to click and drag the fill color and the stroke color all at one time. Okay, line. Now this is back to what Jazz was showing us. We can control the thickness of the line weight. So I'm going to suggest going around 10 is probably pretty good. Start inside of the head. See, that's a little bit thicker than it was shown in the tutorial that we saw, but that's okay. Now what Jazza was mentioning to us is we can start with our snap to objects. We can start our lines outside and then finish them connected to the object, and the lines will automatically snap to. And without that, we have to move our lines and connect them, and we have issues like we had there and whatnot. So it's really a very useful tool, or a method I should say, to doing things. So we'll make some arms as well. He mentioned that drawing the arms up to the tops of the shoulders is useful, so we'll do that as well. And now what's actually very fascinating and very useful is that while you hold the Control key down, you can grab, let's say, where the elbow is, and you can move the whole arm, right? And that shows different shapes and changes and all sorts of different things that you can do. You can also grab where the hand is, again holding the Control key down. Now there's two things you can do with it as well. There's, if you hold down your Control key while you're hovering over the arm, you'll get a curve potentially sometimes, which means that you can actually curve the line, which is very useful. And you could also get, let's see on this one, you can see an angle here, and there you can see the elbow, etc. So you can move that a little bit with the elbow. Alright, I don't want to do that too many times, so I don't want to lose my elbow, but anyhow, you can see how that becomes really useful. Now, that being said, Jazz was showing us as well that it can be kind of limited, the amount of movement that you can do. He was saying that it snaps quite a bit if you have the snap to function highlighted when you're trying to move a limb. So what you can do is you can unclick the snap to, and then you can move it a lot more fluidly. So you can move it wherever you want it to be. And then you probably won't get that problem, which I think is what happened up here. So I no longer have an elbow to work with. So turn the snap to off, and then you'll keep your limbs intact. Otherwise, you might have the same problems I just did. There you go. And a natural stance. Here we go. Is what we're looking for. There we go. So you guys are going to be able to play with this a little bit and try to end up with something similar to what we saw in the video. So the legs were more or less kind of naturally together, kind of like that, not too wide. And then there we go, the feet aren't too long either. So again, play around with that until you get it more or less what we're looking at here. There we go. Alright, that's number 2. Number 3, Stickman, is going to be using a different tool. That was the paintbrush tool. So, holding the shift key down, paintbrush tool, or the B key is selected. First of all, we're going to select the head, press Control C and Control V, and you'll see that another instance of that head is appearing on our screen. Jasmine mentioned that the head itself, the body should be a little bit smaller, so that's what we're going to do. And notice right now, Jazza was talking as well, that the properties panel for the brush tool, should come up. Notice that it's not coming up right now. It's not because our head instance is selected, and this is all the information about the head in the properties panel. So to bring the brush properties available in the properties panel, we have to click on the screen. So notice that, and if you want to avoid making a little paintbrush, when you click on the screen, you can just Control, and then you can click on the screen that way. And there we go. So now we can adjust the properties of the brush. We can change the brush size. We can do things like change the brush color as well. And I believe that this circle here is the actual size of the brush. Yes, it is. You can see that when you hover your mouse over the screen. And if you wanted that to change, you could go and click your Z tool, and then back to your brush tool, Control key, and there you go. Now your brush itself is going to be a lot bigger in relation. Actually, it's a lot smaller. Let's do that the opposite way. So we'll hold the zoom key down, hold the Alt key, and zoom out. That's what's going to do it. And then go back to our brush tool. There we go, and there's our properties again. So you can see the same size brush, and now our brush is much bigger in relation to the head, so you can play around with that as you wish. And incidentally, if you didn't like the default settings for your zoom tool, which can be a little bit restricting, then you can just click and change the number, say 85% or whatever. Right, I'm going to zoom in back in because where I like it. There we go. That's pretty good. So brush key, Control key, click on the screen to bring open my panel, and my brush size is pretty good there. I think make it down a little bit smaller, and I'm going to make now some brush strokes. Now, Jazza was mentioning that you want to use a pen and a drawing pad. We don't have them in the school, but I'll show you some examples of them. I have one for myself, and I've used it a few times, and I find it does work well. I think you have to get used to drawing with it a little bit before you can get good at it. Anyhow, for now, a mouse is pretty much equivalent. You can do about the same amount of coolness with the mouse. So smoothing, I was playing around with it a little bit. I don't know, you can have some fun with that. 45 I found was kind of natural looking. Again, if you don't like your line, Control Z, and this is really useful when you're using this brush tool, because I often make a lot of mistakes when I'm using it. And then just kind of a curved line for the leg. I didn't really like that one. Some more of the knee there. Don't like the ankle there. Looks kind of funny. Okay, try one more time here. Straighter. There we go. Not so much. I'll try it with the other leg. And there. And there we go. And there we go. A little bit of a foot there. And this one almost has a little bit of foot already. Again, up from the shoulder and then down. And this one, he kind of had that way. It's a little bit, arm's a little bit big. Try there. There we go. That's pretty good. And you can hold the control key down, and then you can move the head to a different place. So he's like kind of looking down, scratching his head. There we go. Try to make that shape if you can. Here's an interesting thing to notice is when you hold the shift key down, and like we could with this shape here, we could just move the limbs where we want, which will be very handy when we're animating. When you do that to this shape, something different happens. You control the skin, basically. You can reshape your guy or your girl. So play around with that a little bit, but don't be afraid to go Control Z and change exactly what you did, because you can mess your little guy up quite a bit. I'm just going to zoom in here, back to my brush tool, Control, and see if I can clean up the skin a little bit. And what's interesting about this is now all of a sudden my character, which is just a stick man, takes on a much more 3D kind of a look. It almost looks like more of a shadow now than a stick man, which I think is what Jazza was talking about, why he used to use this kind of animation quite a bit. Although you have to play around with it quite a bit to get to know how to change your shapes and whatnot. So anyhow, play with it a little bit and then move right on to the last type of stickman. And here we go. So we can make another copy of the head. Control key, select the head. Control C, Control V. There's my instance. Hold the shift key down. Pardon me. There's my head. Using the line tool again and drawing towards. Actually, what he showed us was a line that didn't connect with the head. Sorry, that's not my line tool, is it? Yeah, sure it is. Alright, okay, there we go. Don't hold the shift key down when you're drawing the line. That would help. Okay, so, and he showed us the cap over on this side with the none showing. Yeah, and we'll press our V key and we'll select that. Actually, let's go back to the brush. Hold the Alt key down. There we go. And see if that works. Yeah, so we'll go to cap and we'll go none. There we go. So if you didn't see what I just did there, I drew my line first while the cap was set to round, and I tried to change it just by making it none, or not having it selected, but just to select the cap under the cap feature, changing it to none. That didn't work, so I had to select it first before I could change it back. There we go. Anyways, just to explain that a little bit. Okay, so now, not my brush key, let's go back here. I want my line tool. That is keyboard shortcut N. There we go. So now I can draw top there. Becomes nice and round. And there again. Oh, one thing I'm missing. I'm just going to step backwards here. And I'm missing my snap to objects. And that's really important. That's why the first one didn't really snap in there. There we go. Again, very useful using this because of the feature that you can change pretty much every limb. They all kind of stay attached to each other. So when I hold the control key down, I'm going to unsnap my guy so I don't mess up my arms again. There we go. And I can move his arm down a little bit. Move his arm up over here. Shorten his arm over a little bit. Move his elbow down a little bit. There we go. Shorten. Shorten. A little bit in. There we go. Last one. There we go. Now I can select the head too and move it down so it's a little bit closer. And that's it. So, the function of your lesson today is going to be to stop playing. Going to be to draw 4 stickmen. The first one, absolutely basic. Play around with it. Notice how it's quite limiting. Second one is going to be drawn with the line tool and the oval tool. Remember to change your head to a symbol and before you move on. And using your line tool, draw all of your lines towards the origin, the center. And then using the control key down while the line tool is selected, you can change the configuration and shape of the arms. And then the next one is going to be with the brush tool. And try to make the shape if you can. Remember that Control Z is the way that you really erase the last line that you did. And then the last one is try the one where Jazza was showing us that where you have the cap tool. The cap tool and select it to the none setting. There we go. Anyhow, make sure you deselected everything, and I believe it's Control Enter. Yeah, and that exports your movie. That's one thing that we're going to be able to do a little bit later is we're going to be able to export movies once we start animating, and then it'll pop up in a movie window with Control Enter key. So try that out. See how it goes. Alrighty, folks. Have fun with all that. Talk to you in the next one.